Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you are listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're 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 listening to the Mr.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, yeah, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and chat with me.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. How's your day been? Have you just been working?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy day. Yeah. Working, being a parent, working while being at home with your kids is definitely challenging. When you have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old, I don't know if you have kids. It is definitely, it can be hard at times, especially with COVID. My son's school got shut down permanently, so we have to watch him until we find some other situation where we had him set up in a Montessori school that was really nice. But a couple days a week we could drop him off there, but they closed down, so now we're having to kind of juggle between being parents and and trying to work from home has been a challenge. And I know there's a lot of other parents out there that are in similar situations to us, so they can probably sympathize with me. It's definitely hard to juggle everything at once, especially a 3-year-old. My 3-year-old son gets into everything. He can't be left alone for more than a minute. He's like breaking stuff and, constantly trying to stick a screwdriver in like a electrical socket or, like trying to kill himself or kill somebody else. So it's one of those things that can be, like I said, it's just a extremely challenging time right now, but we're getting through it.
Nice.
The best way that we can.
Yeah, it's got to be tough with creative work too, where it takes a little while sometimes to get into the flow of things. And if you're having to constantly break your attention to deal with something else, it can be a little difficult to get into that flow.
Oh, yeah. The kids will be fighting over stuff. They'll be, banging at your door. I want a popsicle, or my sister got a popsicle and I didn't get one. Give me one, These sorts of things are constantly happening, every 5 minutes. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a vastly different world than what I used to live previous to having kids, where I had a lot more time to myself. And, I didn't have to worry about 2 little creatures that I have to feed and make sure that they're safe and they don't hurt themselves. And, but it's amazing. Yeah. Being a parent is really, I say that these make it sound like it's a negative thing, but it's really not. They're really amazing. They're just a lot of work, and they're a lot more work just right now during this challenging time during the whole COVID pandemic. And, but hopefully that's going to change. I think within, by the end of this year, I think we're going to get in a better place now looking at the vaccinations and sort of the stuff that's been taking place right now. We're all hoping, I think the situation's going to get better going forward. So
yeah, it's a little unfortunate that, they performed scientists performed this medical miracle of coming up with a vaccine in a year. And now, people on the local level are having trouble getting all of these vaccines into people's arms before they, go off, because apparently with a vial of the vaccine, once you open it, you have to administer all 10 doses within an hour or something like that. And if you don't, it just goes off. So there's just shitloads of vaccine just being wasted because they can't logistically, or they're having issues logistically, getting 10 people into places at a time to administer these vials efficiently. And then countries wealthy countries are just buying all of it. Basically, I know the US bought enough vaccines to vaccinate the US 2 times over. The UK bought enough to vaccinate their country 3 times over. And then Canada bought enough to vaccinate their country 5 times over. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I wasn't aware of these numbers.
yeah, and then on top of that, it's like a lot of it's just getting wasted because they can't figure out how to deal with this like very simple logistical problem after these scientists just like solve this ridiculously technical problem.
Oh, that's bizarre. Yeah, I had no idea that it was that. I think there's only 4 states right now that are now giving the public the vaccinations, while the rest of the states are still waiting. And then there's different priority levels of who can get vaccinated. I think Ben just got vaccinated. I don't know. I know we're not. I know me and my wife aren't. We're in like level C or something according to the chart that we received. Like we're not. We're like after like the medical frontline workers and nurses and people that are in working in medical facilities and nursing facilities and stuff like that. They're so we've not been able to get it yet, quite yet. So, but yeah, it's an interesting situation. And then there's all these people that I have some friends that are like, no, I'm not going to get the vaccine, and hell no, like, and then, I have the other friends of mine, they can't wait to get the vaccine. It's there's such split opinions on the whole matter.
Yeah, I really don't understand anti-vaxxers. It's the craziest shit. But yeah, I was chatting to Ben yesterday about this, and he said when he rocked up there was just like no organization, there was no like chain of command or anything. And the reason he got it is because he's like I don't know, he has like some certificate or something, and when emergencies like this are required, like he's one of the people of a large amount of people who are educated or trained in such a way that they would call on to deal with these kind of things. And he asked them when he got the vaccine, he was like, is there a way that I can just come in like on Sundays or something and organize the data or something like that just to keep shit a little bit more organized? And they just like, apparently the people there just didn't know who to talk to or even who to call to ask or anything. It's just apparently complete chaos.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So like your children, like what do they think of the studio? Do they spend much time in your studio?
Oh yeah, my son and my daughter play down here often. And
Nice.
I'm actually built a little studio for my daughter. She's taking singing lessons and guitar lessons and a little bit of piano. We've got her a singing coach. She just loves singing, and I set up a little studio. Well, I say studio. There was already gear up in this room. We call it our music room. We call it the music rooms because it's got, I don't know, we've got probably 3,000, 4,000 records in there. We've got like turntables and a PA system, and it looks more like a record store than it does like a living room. Like people come over and they're like, whoa, this is not normal. And then we've got like a couple keyboards that I've set up for my daughter. She's got like a Moog little fatty, and I've got like a Moog grandmother up there set up for her, and she really likes the TR-8S drum machine. And I've got like a mic pre set up with like a couple pedal effects and a Novation circuit that she really likes a lot. So she's been programming like little tracks on the circuit and then singing to them. And so that's kind of like her little world up there that I've kind of made. And then we've got like a room that's open to that's got just tons of instruments that I've collected all over the world. Everything from, when I've been to like South Africa or like Asia and South America, like on all my travels, I try to buy some unique instrument or instruments if I can, as much as I can bring home with me on a plane or ship back.
Yeah, that's a good goal. I should probably do more of that. I saw a video on your Instagram of you recording like some like whistle thing that you had. It was like the Jaguar.
Yeah, the Aztec Death.
Oh, the Aztec.
Yeah. Yeah, I got that in Mexico Mexico City when I was there. And I've got probably 30 or 40 Aztec death whistles, all different kinds. And then I have different whistles where you fill them up with water and then they can sound like different birds and they mimic different sort of animals. And yeah, really, really interesting. I'm just I'm obsessed with collecting things that make weird noises. In case anyone hasn't figured that out already. But yeah, I'm always, doesn't necessarily have to be a synthesizer. I'm obsessed with anything that'll just create something interesting and different. And yeah, so I always try to do that when I travel. I always try to pick up something, bring something home that I've not seen before. I've not, like I said, you're in Australia, right? Is that where you're based out of? Or?
I live in San Francisco, but I am Australian, yeah.
Australian. Oh, okay. I didn't know where your home base was, but like last time when I toured in Australia, I bought like 3 didgeridoos and
oh, nice. Yeah, didgeridoos is
a couple bull roars.
Can you play a didgeridoo?
I can actually. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
I got circular breathing down.
Yeah, circular breathing's tough. It's like you have to constantly be blowing out somehow whilst bringing new air in without like stopping the outward breath, which is
it's tough. I bought a CD. It was like a DVD CD that I bought that taught you how to circular breathe, and I did it actually more started like beatboxing into the didgeridoo, like just not having to pull away from it, and then just kind of breathing while like doing repetitive like rhythms, and then I was able to do longer takes, and then eventually do longer takes, and it took a little bit of practice, but it was I was eventually able to get it. But yeah, it's super fun. I love the didgeridoo, and I just was like, when me and my brother, when I was there touring in Australia, I was like, oh, I've got to buy like a real deal didgeridoo. I think we were in Melbourne or Brisbane. I can't remember where it was where we bought it, but I remember trying to get it home, and at the airport, it's like a huge thing made out of carved eucalyptus wood and like super heavy. But yeah, it's like awesome. I remember buying a ton of stuff when I was there touring, and I think I also did my Devilfish modification to my 303 with Robin Riddle when I was in Melbourne. I brought my 303 to him personally, and had him. Was like, here it is.
Did
please.
He used to write music under the name Robin Fox by any chance?
I don't know. Robin does make music.
Is it like mostly sort of Max MSP and like AV stuff with lasers and stuff, or?
I'm not sure. He gets into a lot of strange stuff. The CDs that he gave me while I was there were all these binaural recordings he had done in the rainforest. So it was a lot of field recordings and really, really interesting stuff. But I mean, I don't know. He may have created these other things or have gone under another alias.
The reason I ask is because like years and years ago, I was like on MySpace actually. I used to follow this guy called Robin Fox from Melbourne who was just this crazy like Max MSP dude who would just make all of these weird pieces of music that was supposed to be enjoyed with like a laser show, but
okay, cool.
The music was really just like bleeps and bloops and weird sound design. It wasn't actually like, I mean, what you would consider traditional music. It was more like sound design or something. But I don't know, sometimes those sound design things that are not necessarily very musical, when you pair them with a visual experience that kind of ties it all together for your brain, it can be a really cool experience anyway.
Was any of the synthesis and stuff that he was doing in his compositions, were they anyway like sort of synced with like jitter objects in Max that were like, were they tied to any visuals? You were talking about lasers, because I've been experimenting with lasers lately. Oh, nice. And audio controlling lasers. So just in my spare time, just goofing around here, but I didn't know if he was experimenting with that or he had like somehow synced.
Yeah, I'm unsure. I mean, like he just had his music uploaded to MySpace, and I guess at the time, like video streaming was not a massive thing because the internet was still really slow. So I just read it in like his bio that was the goal of the music, and that listening to it on MySpace really missed the point. But for some reason, he had it uploaded there anyway.
Oh man, I miss the days of MySpace. There's some funny times. I haven't looked at my MySpace page in probably 4 or 5 years, maybe more, maybe longer. I don't even know if it's still around. It's
the worst platform now. Like I think I went there earlier this year during the pandemic sometime, because I was like, I'm bored, and like I just remember MySpace. I'm like, I wonder what's going on there, and I went there and checked it out, and it's just so dead, and like the website is so broken, and yeah, it's terrible.
Oh man. That's a bummer. I remember that was like the place to hang out before. I think it was Friendster before that. I'm trying to think of all these like.
Well, the original
socials.
place to hang out, I think, was for musicians was like AOL or ICQ or Messenger.
ICQ, yeah. I remember being on ICQ, and there was a server that we used to hang out on back in the day. It was like me and Christian Vogel, like a bunch of crazy people, Sean from Autechre,
like
and
Dogs on Acid or whatever.
No, it was a server that my friend Jeff used to run. He shut it down. It was like a BBS server that we used to all log on to and trade patches and stuff back in the day. And it was an awesome place. It was just like software developers and experimental electronic artists from all over the world would log in, and we used to just congregate there and like have like these long chat threads about just, you know, synthesis and different synthesis methods and sampling, or just gear, equipment, just production techniques and stuff. And this was back in like, I want to say like late 90s, early 2000s. And back when we were just all on like the G3 Wall Street MacBooks and stuff. And yeah, those were cool days. Like I miss those days of just like us having this like super cool underground spot just to like trade up on like, you know, patches and stuff like that. And
there's something that's been lost, right? Like these days in the music, the electronic music space, which is exploration, I guess. There's not as much of it as there once was, I think, because it's such well-trodden ground now that, yeah, I mean, obviously, like you're constantly finding stuff and uploading it to your Instagram that I've never seen. Like, for instance, that emission control thing that you were using at some point. That's Curtis Rhodes, who's a professor at the UC Santa Barbara, and he's written several books. Microsound, which is a very famous book, and the Computer Music Tutorial, which is another famous book that a lot of universities like. It's like a holy grail, very thick book that defines a lot of the technical terms of digital synthesis, digital signal processing, and but Microsound is probably his most famous book. Curtis is, like, to me, considered like the grandfather of granular synthesis. And if you don't have that book, I highly recommend checking it out. It completely will change your whole perspective on how you think about sound. What is it called? Microsound?
Microsound by Curtis Rhodes. Yep.
Cool.
And yeah, that book is incredible. And Curtis's music is absolutely incredible too. I'm a huge fan of it. I've been using his apps and been a fan of his music since the late 90s, and was using Pulsar Generator and a lot of his iOS apps, or not iOS, I'm sorry, Mac OS, OS X. Before it was OS X, it was OS 9.2. So I was using his stuff on OS 9.1, OS 9.2. There was Pulsar Generator, which was a granular bass synthesis engine, and then there was a couple other apps. You could probably, they might be still available on his website, but yeah, he's done some incredible stuff. And I had the honor of doing a concert with him, and he featured me in his second book, which was like rhythmic techniques in electronic music. And he had me featured in a couple chapters, which I was completely on. I was like, oh my God, you're like the pinnacle for me. You know, I'd studied his work for so many years and read all of his books, and it was just an honor for him to reach out to me and say, hey, I'd love to invite you to UC Santa Barbara to do a concert series. And if you don't mind, you know, I'd love to also feature you in my book. And I was just completely blown away. That was, you know, I really wasn't expecting that, to be honest. But he's incredible. And he really makes you think about time. Like with emission control, specifically that app. So the app that you saw that had been ported to, that was actually a super collider patch that one of the students that worked with Curtis, or several, I think it was two students that worked with Curtis, had designed that for Curtis. So emission control was basically his idea, but was put together by a few graduates, and the original version of it would only run on a G5 Mac, which I still have. I actually still have a G5 Mac tower for that specific reason, that was running that specific build.
Just to run emission control?
Just to run the super collider patch, yeah. Wow. Because how incredible it was. Like, you could literally take a 4-second sample and create an entire 20-minute intricate piece of music with just 4 seconds of sound. And so if you think about that, it's just like a micro universe. Like, when I was at Curtis's studio, he took a field recording of just like dried leaves being crushed, you know, like a high quality recording of dried leaves, or just like these sticks, like small sticks being crushed, you know, and then he put that short sample into emission control and then just like let it go nuts. And I remember being in his studio being like, just blown away at the infinite complexity that he was able to get with just the most minimal amount of source material. And, you know, just the whole idea of like zooming into this macro universe of sound, which just, you know, it just blew me away. The whole concept
so why
of
not
everything.
rebuild this for like a newer system, you know, like Mac OS X or something?
Well, he did. These other people ported, took basically that Super Collider patch and updated it. Emission, which is what I posted on my Instagram channel. It was the emission control version 2,
Gotcha.
which now runs on newer updated OS systems. You don't need a G5 processor Mac like you did to have to run the original one. And you also don't need all of the Super Collider extension libraries and stuff to run it, because just to get all the components to run the original patch was a bit tricky. And you also had to have Super Collider running, which is not a deal breaker because Super Collider is free. You can download it free now, but to get it set up and running was a little bit of a process. But the new version, you don't have to do any of that. They've ported everything over. Everything's now encapsulated into the application itself, so you're able to run it natively without the need of running Super Collider, and it's pretty awesome to see it make a comeback. So I was really excited when it did, and I wanted to, of course, let my fans know for them and be like, hey, check this out. This is really cool, you know?
Yeah,
for those of you
awesome.
who may not be aware of it, you know, I try to be pretty transparent about cool things that I feel are really interesting or could be interesting to other people that might want to explore, you know, one sound technique or processing technique or an idea or, you know, or an instrument. It could be an instrument focused thing. You know, I just, I'm always like looking for new things and playing with stuff and constantly exploring. It never gets old to me, you know? I don't know. I guess I'm just obsessed with like finding new things that are fun to make music with or create new sounds with. And
yeah, I noticed that you do a lot of this kind of stuff with like you don't stop at just stuff you can do on hardware like synthesizers or your computer. Like you also do a lot of stuff with like iPhone apps and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love iOS stuff too, and there's so many great developers I worked with over the years in the iOS community. And I think I did like one of the first all music compositions with Tabletop, this old iOS app. Probably many people don't know it, but it was one of the first full-fledged like DAW inside an iOS app where you could like connect up your own devices and make the sequences for all the groove boxes and stuff, connect them all together, and then like make a complete track out of it. By Retronyms. I don't know if the company Retronyms, I think they're also based in San Francisco, and they've done collaborations with like Akai, and I did a bunch of sound design with them for a lot of their apps, and then later did work with Akai on the IMPC Pro app and a bunch of other apps that they released. So it was a great entry to working in the world of iOS, and I've continued to stay working in there and done a lot of sound design for other developers that do really cool stuff, and it's a great platform. I love it. I feel like the newer generation of people making music. I have friends that are like younger friends. They do everything on the iPad. That's their music production studio. You know, they're doing everything through that, and I've even messed around with it. Like my favorite app right now is Drambo. I love that.
What's it called?
It's Drambo.
Drambo. I'll have to check.
Oh yeah, you instant buy on the App Store.
App.
It's like a modular sequencing environment. You have different modules and stuff. It sounds great. The interface is really interesting. You can create really, really interesting compositions with it. And it's definitely one of my favorites as far as if you want to flesh out an entire track, or if you want to just do some cool sketches. It's definitely one of my recent favorites. I think I made a post on my Instagram as well. I did a little track demo post of it.
Yeah, I found some other cool stuff on your Instagram, like Sequence. That was a cool one.
Oh yeah, Sequence. Yeah,
it's
that's
like
a fun one.
Weird little sperm like creatures,
organisms.
with these like nodes on their head.
Exactly. Yeah. And you make sort of, it's all based on like gestural sort of movements that drive the notational paths of the different notes and things that happen. And yeah, I love stuff like that. Just sort of out of the box thinking of, music, gestural, kind of painting with numbers or, it's really, really fun. Yeah. I'm like I said, yeah, there's so many cool apps, and there's so many apps that have also kind of, I kind of wish they kept there. I have at least a handful, like I have like 40 or 50 apps where the developers just didn't keep updating up with the latest OS, and they're not natively running on like iOS 13 or iOS 14 right now. It's kind of a bummer because some of the more underground stuff was really cool. But yeah, I try to keep up with a lot of that stuff too, because sometimes, like I can't be in the studio, I'm with the kids, and we're upstairs or something, and the most convenient thing to have to play with is an iPad with headphones. When kids are watching their TV shows or whatnot, I'm sitting on the couch. Sometimes it's just fun to pull up Mi Rack and plug up a couple modules like VCV Rack stuff, or use Drambo or use some other iOS app, Borderlands, or there's so many fun ones that that are fun to play around with or do little sketches with. There's so much out there. But yeah, you're right. I try not to leave. I try not to always be focused just on one thing. I know a lot of people are probably like, oh, he's just the modular guy or whatever. But, I try to always keep things, at least on my social media channels, kind of always different, and not trying to keep it always focused on just one thing. Like try to vary it up quite a bit from, week to week. There could be something completely different or random, to check out. And in between that, there's like little snippets of music tracks I'm working on at that given point in time. Could be just some random patch or whatever. It's really just kind of, I don't really put that much thought into it. It's not like a curated thing. I don't have like a YouTube channel like all these other YouTube stars where they like curate all these different topics and stuff. That's really not me. It's just purely whatever I'm messing with at that point in time. And
yeah, it seems like
really what it.
Yeah, exactly. It just seems like you explore with all sorts of like random tools that you find on the internet or that get given to you or that you just hear about and whatnot, and then just make weird stuff with them and then go, oh, that's cool, and just upload it, which is really fun. I mean, I love looking at your social media for that reason, both because like I find out about a lot of tools that I wouldn't have heard of otherwise, and because you also use a lot of tools that I do know about in really like just ways that I wouldn't think to use them, which is always fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Speaking
I'm glad it's helpful.
Modular, yeah, it's really helpful. Speaking of modular stuff, when was the last time that you bought a module?
Today.
Oh, shit. Nice. I was under the impression that you would have just gotten given all of your modules because of your Instagram at this point. It's like kind of like the John McAfee pump and dump schemes for Bitcoin or whatever, but it's like the Richard Devine modular scheme. You give you a module, you like make a post about it, and then they sell like 1 million copies.
Well, no, I do help out. I try to help out new modular manufacturers. If there's somebody doing something that's really interesting that I feel that's really cool, and a lot of these people are one-man shows. They're doing all the development on their own. They don't have a lot of money. So a lot of times they'll send me a prototype. They may not send me a final version of the module, which is fine. So what they'll do is it's like, hey, would you maybe get the word out? I don't have the reach that you have, to get the word out to all these people. This module I've been working on for like 4 or 5 years, or this synth that I've been working, I've had this company, I think they're in Poland, who just made the vector synth they sent me. And, it's just 2 guys in a basement. They're just getting stuff going. They really don't have a huge budget to do a lot of advertising and stuff like that. So a lot of these companies just reach out, because they know that the people that are following my feed are the exact people that would probably be interested in what they're designing. So, and I turn a lot of people away. There's a lot of companies that have hit me up where I'm like, you know what, that's really cool, but that the people that follow my channel would probably not be interested in this product. There's a very, like, I've tried to make my channel it's like a very niche channel that's specifically aimed towards like kind of boutique instruments, modules, or synthesizers that are more specific to kind of like sound design. If you're more interested in get deeper into like synthesis or sound, it's more it's definitely geekier, a more nerdier rabbit hole of going down into, which, I've really tried to keep it just focused in that area and not really kind of make it like this free for all kind of channel where I'll like cover any, just anything that comes out that's popular or, or some popular topic or something. I don't cover political or, you know what I mean? It's just strictly stays the same. It's just cool, weird, interesting things that I find. And that's always pretty much how I try to keep it being. And I try to keep that also with the Eurorack modular community, so I get hit up by a lot of Eurorack modular manufacturers, but I don't necessarily post up everything that, or I kindly just say, I don't know. I don't think that the people who follow me will be too interested in this. It's got to be really something different that's kind of, really thinking out of the box at this point for me to want to be posting it on my channel. So, I buy stuff all the time still. I buy a lot of stuff for research for my own, for, making samples and making new sounds and just, I know probably people all think that I've connected with every company, but there's tons of companies that I don't know. And I actually like supporting people that are just starting out. I always offer to buy this stuff up first. Usually they end up giving it to me, but I'm like, hey, no, I actually want to buy this. I want to support you. I think you're doing something cool, because if you don't make money from doing this, then how else are you going to keep producing cool stuff? And then if you don't make cool stuff, then how can I make cool stuff? That's how I look at it,
That's a great way to look at it.
And, when it comes to like people making really cool plugins, I always just, if it's like a really cool plugin that I'm like, wow, this is a fascinating concept. Like I instantly buy it and not only do I buy it first, but then I get in contact with the people and tell them like, look, I bought your stuff and I just wanted to tell you how amazing this product is or how cool it is. And that you're doing something really unique that I feel is, vastly different than what everyone else is doing. And I'd like to support those people that are actively trying to make a difference and do something completely, different, not go with the mainstream, just try to, I feel like these days, as you said earlier in the conversation, a lot of people are not exploring as much. I feel like people are really playing it safe these days, and playing it safe musically as well. Like they'll just, go for the popular EDM styles or whatever the current, trend is. And, I've never been interested in that. I've always been interested in more, exploring.
It's really
sort of
awesome.
Uncharted territory.
Yeah, it's awesome that you made that work, because I feel like a lot of people who are in that explorative territory just don't, and I think that's why so many people make the EDM stuff, because they see how many people have made careers out of that side of things, I guess, and they're like, well, there's a higher like reward for doing a good job in EDM, whereas like doing a good job in the experimental world, it's like, it's hard to say if that equals a career,
Oh, it's true. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say that, yeah, it's been easy or anything. But because I've been I've just strategically been like, you know what, I'm going to focus my skills in completely different worlds and, try to push the world of sound design as far as I can in any direction. Then I'm, whatever the context is, and I think that's why I've been able to work with so many different technologies and companies, is because I've been this person who's not been scared to jump into these things too. Because sometimes people get intimidated by this stuff, and it's easy to, people get into their comfort zones. They get, comfortable with what they like using to make music, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's, I tell people like, you should make music with what you feel comfortable with and you feel confident with, that you could express yourself with these tools. You shouldn't sit down and get frustrated with some instrument or some environment. And, you're not going to make your best music with something that constantly is nerve-wracking and you feel limited with, or, you can't feel you can get into a creative space with. So, for me, I like to switch things up all the time, because I feel like I constantly want to break out of my old habits and be like, okay, I need to just not make music on a computer today, or maybe I'll just make a track on the computer, do live coding, or do something where I'm working with Max MSP or a Reactor Patch or something, or working with some virtual synth I've never played with before. Or one day it could be just like, I'm going to just make music on this drum machine or this synth, or, you know, like I just constantly love having the ability to jump around to different things and not feel like I'm like constrained to working in one environment or having to create sounds in one environment. And I think a lot of it is just my weird brain.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like I'm going back to people using tools that they're just like in their comfort zone with. You know, quite a lot of the time, I think if your goal is to just like get a piece of music finished, more often than not, it's probably useful to go for the thing that you're comfortable with and know your way around, than like being in that exploratory world where you're trying to like learn a new thing and whatnot. Like, for instance, I just got given the Zoya Eurobureau by Empress. And you know, if I jump on that thing, there's no way a piece of music's happening. It's like
that's a deep box.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sitting there like, you know, pressing these little squares, making these connections and doing all sorts of whatever. Like, I'm definitely not making music at that point.
Yeah, the Zoya is a great pedal. They're migrating it over to a Eurorack module.
Oh, that's what I was
right now.
talking about. Yeah, the Eurobureau.
Oh, you have the module now, or do you have the pedal?
Yeah. No, I've got both actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I just have the pedal. And the pedal was really cool. I made a couple patches in it, and I'm a huge fan of all the Empress stuff. I use like their reverb and just love their stuff. But yeah, I need to check out the Eurorack module. I don't know how different it is from the pedal. I would imagine that it's pretty similar, just with CV input control and
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's one to check out on my list. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you could get lost in any one of these devices and spend, you know, weeks upon days of just like trying to figure out how to use stuff without being really productive in the studio, you know. And like you said, and when I tell people, you know, whatever you feel most comfortable with making music with is what you should use, and, you know, what you're most productive with too, you know. And also it's what your goals are too. I think that's important. It's like, what do you want to achieve with this stuff? I have friends that they don't want to make music. They just want to fiddle with stuff and it's kind of like the whole like, hey, I just want to sit on my back porch and play guitar. I don't want to do anything else. It's just more like medicine for me. It's like, it's not necessarily about having to make a song or being stressed out about making a track out of all this stuff. It's purely medicine for me, just to sit here and, you know, it's like someone going skateboarding or going, you know, kayaking, or it's like any other activity that sort of just, it's like a therapeutic experience where you just get something out of it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to accomplish anything or do anything. You just do it, and it just makes you feel nice. And
yeah, I mean, some people are rewarded, I think, in different ways too. You know, like some people can go through a whole career with music doing the same thing their entire career and be fine with that.
Totally.
Right? But like other people, I think like I'm sort of, you know, I need a balance of those days where I am not trying to write music and instead trying to like entertain myself with new interesting ways of making music, but not necessarily getting music written right. And it's like, you need to, after you do this for 10 plus years, like keep yourself engaged with it, you know, so you're not just on autopilot going through the motions, making the same shit all the time.
Yeah. And that's why I like to switch things up. You know, it's to get out of that autopilot sort of mentality where, you know, I like kind of like pulling the carpet out from my feet sometimes, being like, oh, what if I had to do everything with just this or this
like
environment?
Switch DAW or something like that.
Yeah, completely. Like, I'll use Bitwig today, or I'll use Max for Live for this, or Logic, or Cubase. You know, I've used so many different things that, you know, and I don't have a preference either way. It's like I just, you know, just wherever my brain's wandering that day to want to explore something. And, you know, I think that's why I've stayed in it so long too. You know, I think, you know what, I feel like I'm like the old dad now, but, but it's just this constant search for like something new, something that's kind of like, wow, it's like coming across some new thing you've never heard before. I'm always kind of interested in like trying to find the sound I've never heard before, or like this combination of things that create this space I've never heard before, this unusual, you know, trying to create something that you can't really describe even what it is. That's really like the ultimate goal for me.
So I'd imagine you're the kind of person that like doesn't get hit with writer's block, right?
Oh no, there's days. Yeah, there's definitely days where I feel like, you know, your brain's just completely like smashed from working all day or dealing with like family stuff, and you know, you're not feeling very creative, and you feel like you want to be productive and creative, and yeah, sometimes the best thing to do, or for me, is just to go for a walk. We live in the woods, and like in my backyard, I can just walk in the woods, and you know, there's lots of nature. We've got 2 big creeks and lots of trees, like 30 acres of land behind us. It's all floodplains, and yeah, so I can just go for a walk. And sometimes the best thing to do is just walk away from something if you had your head too deep in it, and just come back with a fresh kind of mind. You know, it's at least works for me. I know that might not work for everyone's when it comes to writer's block, but a lot of times I just have to leave it and come back to it with a different frame of mind, or like listen to something that's completely opposite of what I'm working on to get my head out of it for a few minutes, or for, you know, or longer, and then kind of come back to it with a new perspective and see if I can like work on it and make it better, or sometimes I make it worse.
Well, the reason I ask is because like I hear this idea espoused so often in the electronic music community, where people are like, oh man, music was like so fun at first, and I was like, you know, I was getting into that flow state for 12 hours every night and going to bed at 5 a.m. and losing track of time, and you're making a bunch of music, and now that I'm like better at producing, it's all kind of like boring. I wish I had like the skills that I had now, but with the flow state and like and you know, excitement that I had about it then. And I think a big part of that is that they lose that explorative property, right? Because it's like at the start you didn't really know what anything in, say, Ableton was, so the entire process was explorative, and that's really fun and inspiring, and it makes you want to keep going back to that thing to be like, what else is there? You know, like you want to come back the next day and be like, what else can I find? You know, it's like you're like a kid in playing hide and seek or something. It's like exciting, and I feel like that's why I was like, maybe you don't get that feeling as much as other people, because you're constantly in this world of just like exploring. New things.
Yeah, that's probably you know, a big part of it. Yeah. But definitely there's been times, I'm not going to lie, I'm just like anybody else. You know, I've run into situations when I'm working on my own music where I've been banging at this track for months, and, you know, I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't know where to go with this, or, you know, at some point, like, where does it go from here? I've like already spent weeks and weeks trying to figure out where this track is going to head, and banging my head on it over and over and over. But yeah, like you said, yeah, I constantly like exploring new things. It's that, like you said, it's like that new, something new. What can I do with this new thing? If you can kind of keep that, you know, that state of frame of mind. For me, at least, that's what I like doing for myself, is, you know, constantly exploring new stuff. And, you know, sometimes you get great stuff, sometimes you don't get such great stuff, but there's always something different that happens that you wouldn't normally do. And I'm always interested in the stuff that I wouldn't typically normally do. And these accidental things, I love the spontaneity of something like accidentally going wrong, or not hooking up something the right way because you don't completely understand what you're doing, and then something happens, you're like, whoa, this is really interesting. And especially with modular stuff, that's what I love watching other people coming to patch on my system, because they'll do things differently than I will do, and then I'll be like, what did you just do there that I wouldn't have thought to do that? I've never thought to use these modules in this sort of combination, and the way that you're using, I would have never thought to do that. And that's what I love about systems that are so open-ended like that. There's no rules, there's no right or wrong way to do things. And I love that. I love any instrument where there's not a wrong way to play it. You know, you can't fuck it up. It's just go with whatever emotionally you connect with, and it's getting something interesting to you at that moment in time. You know, I think that's an inspiring instrument. You know, you just go with your intuition and you figure out your flow with it, and with a bit of time, something will happen, you know, if you spend enough time with it. So it's, yeah, I don't know it's hard to describe that. It kind of just something that I try to do all the time here every night.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you patch every single night?
Pretty much. I think I've said this in interviews before. Since 2016, since I set up all these my big modular systems here, and I have multiple systems all over the floor that I'm constantly changing out and stuff. That I've got probably like 4 or 5 patches happening all at the same time. So they're all different ideas, but you might see a video where I post a patch up, but people will see all these crazy wires and stuff. It's like, man, he's like got all this crazy shit, but we're only hearing like 8 sounds. And that's because you're only hearing 8 sounds because you're only hearing one small patch amongst, 5 or 6 other patches that are running. But all those other patches are muted because those are other things that I'm working on, but I've either not finished them or I've got them to a point where I want to like take a break from them and revisit them back. And then finish them out into something, or I might record them out into a track that night. So that's sort of been like my system over the last 3 or 4 years is like, okay, because you can't save a patch.
Right.
So I just leave them for weeks, and then I kind of work on them, and then I'll record them, and then I'll pull the patch, or I'll pull the section of that patch in the system, and then I'll repatch something new while the other patches stay in the same place until I can record them or get them to a point to where I feel like they're at a more interesting place. And then, so I do them in different stages. I'll do different takes and versions of recordings of those patches. So that's kind of how I've been working. And so that's why everything's always like looks constantly crazy in a lot of my modular videos. But yeah, it's just my weird method of madness, I guess, of my way of working, without having to pull the patch, because that was like the most kind of nerve-wracking thing. Was like I'd get something really good, and then I was like, okay, where am I going to take it from here? And then I would record it, and I'd be like, well, I need to spend some more time with it, but then because I had such a small system, I was like, well, I have to record this. And then before I do anything else, or I can't do anything else. I was like, well, if I just build bigger systems and then link them together, then I could create parts. And then I started developing this other technique where I would mix different patches together. And it's kind of how I did my Sort Lave album. I was like, I started like one patch on one system, and then I would patch on another system, and it would kind of have some relation to that other patch because they were sharing the same clock. And then it would be different progressions. The song would change. It would like start at one point, but then it would end up at this completely different point because it was all being played by 4 or 5 different systems connected together, but they would all play their part and then come in at different times during the piece. And then you would end up with these sort of organic changes that would happen over time. That was like the only way that I could think about doing these changes. That sounded interesting, but didn't bore the listener, I guess, or bore me. It was more my attention span as far as like how I wanted to drive the listener through a space, trying to tell a story with these instruments, or a patch that I had set up. So that was the way that I did it, because the most difficult thing to do with the modular is to do drastic changes on the fly, like have one setting, then go to a whole different set of sounds and things without using samplers. Because in that record, I did everything with synthesis. I didn't use a single sampler to create that album, like every kick drum, every snare
or something like that.
Nope, I didn't use any morphogenes or anything like that. That was all like synthesized. I don't even know how to describe it.
Nothing with a buffer?
Nope, no buffered stuff.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
Is 2HP Freeze got a buffer in it, or is Plonk a sampler? Maybe not.
Plunk's is basically chromofoam.
Oh, it's like
it's physical modeling.
Carpless strung or whatever. Yeah.
It's physical modeling. Yeah, I used a lot of Plonk. I used a lot of the noise engineering stuff. There was a lot of
impressive to do that on modular with no buffers.
Yeah, it's a challenge, definitely. Yeah, but it sounds different. Like when you listen to the record, it sounds really, really organic, and that was like my intention was to really make everything from scratch, make every hi-hat, every snare, like everything just feel really, really organic. Like the sounds, like I was using resonators and all kinds of weird, like I don't know how to like feedback resonators to create the melodies, and I'm working on a new album right now where I'm doing a similar thing where it's all like synthesis based stuff, and creating melodies out of like feedback resonators and just weird things, non-typical type stuff that I haven't been hearing anywhere else. But yeah, it's just constant exploration and trying to push myself into new directions and doing new things. And but like I said, that's not necessary. I wouldn't say that's like, I don't want people to think like, hey, that's the way you should do things.
Oh,
because it's a real pain. It's a real pain in the ass, to be honest with you. It's not.
And really
it's not
expensive, right?
Yes, expensive.
Like building,
very labor intensive.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're saying, to basically make one song go through like 5 different sections, you essentially need 5 like giant. First of all, you need like enough modules to make like a part of a song, which in the first place, I mean, to get a single signal chain going in modular world is like $3,000 right there. So like to make one
crazy
whole part of a song, and then on top of that, you need 5 of those whole setups to like go through a whole song. And then on top of that, if you're making an album, you can't, and you're trying to keep it like all organic and stuff, then you can't just record it straight in. You're going to need like outboard compressors and EQs to process it on the way in. And
exactly.
Yeah, that adds up real quick. It's got to be like hundreds of thousands of dollars a gear.
It's ridiculous. Like, to be honest with you, I mean, there's probably easier ways of doing this, a lot cheaper ways of doing this. And, people have done it. People have, I look at like Rob and Sean Autechre, they've done all their stuff in the computer on Max MSP, and it sounds incredible, and they didn't have to spend any money. They probably haven't bought any gear in years, which is awesome, and so that there's definitely no right or wrong way to do it. Like I said, I just wanted, it was more of a challenge that I put on myself. I wanted to put myself through the hell of just seeing if it could be done, if I could make a record just with my hands, not use a timeline, not use a computer. Or I used the computer, but it was more of a tape recorder. It just captured everything at the end of the day. I wanted everything to be mixed and created by hand and like everything feel more natural. Like I changed the progressions and made the things happen when I wanted them to happen. I didn't do it on a timeline with automation and stuff like that.
So once you recorded stuff into the DAW, like you just didn't touch it, you just rendered it out from there.
Oh, no, I did mastering and stuff to it.
Oh, so
yeah, I would take all the stems. I have a system here that can take 32 of the modular stems and separate them, and then I can put them into my, my mastering. I have 2 summing mixers by Dangerous Music, and so I'd stem out all the, then run them through my favorite like outboard analog EQs and compressors and stuff like that, and Pultex and API, and I have a bunch of other stuff here that have different flavors of stuff that I like to I have like stuff for my drum bus and stuff like that. And that was another thing too, like the recording of the record too. I was like, I don't want to use plugins. I want to do everything with hardware. And like you said, it was really expensive, but I was like, I want to learn how to use this stuff. As weird as my music sounds, I want to find that perfect mixture of like, find my sound with this gear that I've got. Like, what is that? Like, I want to find what that is. And like, the only way to do that is to just use this stuff and like put it to work, like, night after night, like mix tracks, mix different stems through it, like find the different combinations that work for you. And what, you'll quickly see the strengths and weaknesses of like the equipment, and how it will work for your sound. Like everybody's sounds different, but it was more of like a learning exercise. I wanted to learn a lot. I'm always one of these people that's like always up for the challenge, just to learn things, because otherwise I don't think I would. I'd probably be, I probably wouldn't learn anything if I didn't say, hey, I'm going to do it this way and just stick to my guns. And if anything, I'm going to at least learn how to use this stuff and be able to make better stuff the next round that I use this stuff again on my next record or my next release or whatever I do down the road. So
yeah, if you're not stretching yourself on albums and stuff like that, and you're just like staying in your own little world and just like not like flexing at all. It's like, it's really hard to get anywhere, or it's really hard to progress in any sort of way that at least I find interesting for myself as well.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm you're right. I'm totally in my own little world. I really am. I'm definitely living in my own space, working on my own time. I'm not like, I think about just the stuff that I did in 2021. I just released like an acid record. I hadn't made acid record in 20 years. I don't know what compelled me to want to make acid music, but I was like, I want to release an acid record. I know no one's making acid music. Probably no one cares about acid music anymore, but
G. Jones is doing a lot of acid these days, and
oh yeah, Greg's really super cool, man. Yeah,
he's a big fan of yours as well, I think. And
yeah, he did. He reached out to me about the record. He actually bought the vinyl, the Cystic record, and reached out to me on Instagram and on Twitter and stuff. He's super cool, really nice guy. His tracks are awesome. I found out about Greg's music through Sander EPROM. EPROM showed me his stuff, and
he's great as well. I really like EPROM's work.
Yeah. Too. Oh yeah, Sander's is great, man. He's an amazing producer, and Greg is too. Both of those guys. I mean, I really respect what they do. They're doing really, really cool music. I would say, like, if you're looking in like the bass music community, like I think they're some of the most forward thinking, maybe like I like really like Little Snake, like what Gino's doing. He's doing really cool stuff. Jimmy Egger's doing great stuff. Like these are some of my friends that are taking like that sound and really pushing it into new directions,
Yeah, I agree. I think what Greg and Sander are doing is they're basically doing what you can get away with in bass music. Like they're taking that to its limit. Like they're taking it just before the point at where I think like a lot of these bass music people would be like, no, that's like too challenging for me.
Yeah, and that's what I love about what they're doing, especially Gino. Gino's really like twisting shit out there, really, really getting crazy with it. Like, I love all his like. Actually, we're working on a track together. We're doing a little collaboration track that's pretty cool. It's like this really abstract electroacoustic bass track, all that goes all over the place. And, but yeah, I love that. I love that they're trying to push it and really like do something different outside of the norm, but still kind of like you said, like you could still dance to it. You could still hear it in a festival environment, but it's kind of like a little bit thinking outside the box a bit, with the textures and some of the sound design and like, even some of the stuff that happens in the track, the compositional decision making that's happening. I love some of that stuff that they're doing is really cool. And,
I just think it's really impressive that like with Greg's music, it's sort of like, and I hate to sort of use this term, but for lack of a better word, like the lowest common denominators, like in the scene, right? Like people who just like don't know a lot about electronic music and who generally like pretty non-challenging, consonant, like easy to listen to electronic music. Those people cannot like enjoy it and love it. And then people like you and I, who are like more on the technical end of stuff, can still listen to it and like tell that it's really intelligent. And I think to be able to like hit both of those demographics like that is just so hard to do. And Greg has done it massively in a great way. So is like Flume, for instance. Like Flume is one of those producers where, he's fucking massive. Like people who listen to pop music just love his stuff. And then also somebody like me who's, right on the technical end of synthesis and whatnot is also like, wow, that's like actually really intelligent and well done.
Yeah, his stuff is great too. Like, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They ride that fine line. And I think that's what makes their stuff so unique to people like us that could recognize the interesting uniqueness that they add to their productions that kind of set them aside from the other producers that are in that realm. And yeah, Flume's, I think he's messaged me on Instagram.
Nice.
Once
That's
or
awesome.
twice, but just randomly. I think I might have. There's so many random people that have messaged me that have like blown my mind on Instagram. I'm like, whoa! Like, Pete Townsend from The Who messaged me one night on there. And then, like, I mean, the most, like, people I didn't even know who, like, I don't even know who they are. So I'll like click their profile and be like, oh, wow, that's so-and-so, or this person, or Richie Houghton, or Dead Mouse, or, like, the craziest people, like, have, like, reached out to me over Instagram, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know they were following me, or, I have no clue. I'm kind of, like you said, I'm just in my own world, and just keep doing my thing. But it's crazy. It's crazy how the technology now can link you with all these people you may not have been connected with before, or, you know, like, because I've been making music for a long time, and the way when I grew up, we didn't have this infrastructure that we have set up to just be able to like message someone from all the way around the world and be like direct DM them, you know, that second. It's like, hey, you're doing something pretty crazy, you know. It's just mind blowing. Yeah, I feel like it's an interesting time now to make music and be a musician within this current state of affairs, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
but
definitely. I'd love to switch the conversation a bit to like follow that line a bit and talk about tech a little bit, because I know that you're now working at Apple, and you've worked at like Google before, and you've worked at Jaguar, and like you've done a bunch of sort of work in these techie industries. What can you say about like your work at Apple? I know like probably there's a bunch of red tape around talking about a lot of it, but like, I mean, you could probably speak about maybe what your job is there and like what sort of your day-to-day consists of, and just, I'm really interested in like what kind of a job Apple would have for somebody like you.
Well, my official title there is a senior content producer for music audio apps. So it's it's just basically content creation for them. I've been a Logic user for, since the beginning, since it was an eMagic product. And I mean, it's not really much to say other than, I just do content creation for them. And that's what I've been currently doing now, I guess, for 7 months. I'm still pretty new, but I was at Google for like 4 years, and I was doing totally different stuff. I was there at Google. I was working as a user interaction sound designer. So I was doing like sound design for a lot of their apps on the mobile phones, like the Pixel and the Android line. And then it was, then a lot of like, we started getting into ambisonic stuff. So I did a lot of 3D audio, spatialized audio, mixing and recording for them for Google Earth VR. I don't know if you got a chance to play with that. I don't know if you have a VR headset.
I do, but I haven't played with that yet.
But I did all the ambisonic mixing and user interface sound design stuff for that environment. And then we worked on several different virtual reality apps where I did all the spatialized mixing and stuff. So I mean, I'm all over the place. Like you said, with Jaguar, like I worked on several cars for them that were prototypes, and then the I-Pace, the electric vehicle, that was a whole completely different, I don't even know how to describe that. That's such a weird job. Maybe probably the weirdest sound design job I've ever had was working on.
We should definitely break this down and explain it, because people are not going to know what this job was. But from what I understand, Jaguar made an electric car. There's a law in the US, or maybe elsewhere as well, that like
in the UK,
that a car has to make a certain amount of noise for it to be legally allowed to drive on the road, so pedestrians can hear it. So to fix this problem of the car being too quiet because it was electric and didn't have an engine, they basically put speakers on the outside of the car, and then you generated some sort of generative system to generate car noise depending on like the user input from the accelerator and all sorts of stuff to play sound, so it was legally able to be driven on roads.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, the legislative law in the UK, I think it was passed in 2011 or 2012, I believe. And that law was passed because there were a bunch of lawsuits that had happened that had happened to other electric car manufacturers that were coming out at that time, because they were all silent. And particularly people that can't see, that are blind, were a big number of those lawsuits that were kind of forced. So they had to figure out something quickly. That's why the legislative law got passed very quickly. And then going forward, because Jaguar is based in the United Kingdom, they had to really think about what they were going to do, because they knew that eventually at some point they're going to transition most of their vehicles over to at the stage that I came into, they were at the hybrid stage. So there was like combustion-based, electric-based vehicles, but eventually everything's going to move over to all electric-based, battery-run vehicles. So it was a problem that they knew that wasn't going away. And so one of the technical specialists there, my friend Ian, very cool guy, he actually was a fan of my music for many, many years before he worked at Jaguar. I think he went to one of my shows when I played in Birmingham, England, or was either there or Newcastle. I can't remember where it was in the UK whenever I was on tour back in the Warp days. And he just reached out to me on Twitter randomly one day. He was like, hey, this is going to sound like a really strange, unusual proposition, but you can say no if this is something you don't think you might be able to tackle. But we're working on an electric vehicle, and we're wondering if you'd be interested in collaborating with us and designing sounds for this car. And I said, wow, that sounds completely out of this world. Yeah, I'd love to join, and I'd love to try this out and just see what happens. And yeah, it was a long process. I'd worked with them for about 4 or 5 years, and we worked on several prototype cars before we launched the I-Pace vehicle, which was the actual car that became the finished product. But the first car I worked on with them was the CRX 75, which I think there's only 5 of them in the world, because they were going to go into production, but they decided to stop because it was close to $1 million that this car was going to sell for. I think it was like 980,000 pounds is what it was initially going to sell for.
It's crazy.
And so, yeah, so it was Jaguar's 75th anniversary, celebrating 75 years of heritage of Jaguar. So this was going to be their anniversary vehicle. So what it was it was a hybrid. It was a half combustion based, half electric based vehicle. That was the first car that they hired me to work on designing sounds for. And you can look up videos on YouTube and stuff of it. There is some press material about it. The car looks really cool, by the way. It's really neat looking. And the tough part about that was the EV engines at the time sounded like a scooter, like a really whiny scooter. It did not match aesthetically to the look of that car when they did the initial test before we put the speakers in and made it sound much more like a race car, or like their brief that they had sent me is they wanted it to sound like the space pod racers in Star Wars, or like the Tron light cycles, something really futuristic electrical sounding. And that was a real challenge first to try to work to the speaker specifications, because we had these really strange speakers that had a very limited frequency response. There wasn't much bass at all. They projected really far and they were really loud, but they had a very limited range of like what frequencies they could output. So it was really challenging to get all of the parts working just right to make it believable. Like it was like, first is it's like believable that it's coming from this car, and then we also have to think about the aesthetics of the actual EV tone, like as the driver hits the pedal and accelerates, the sound has to mimic the car, like accelerating and speeding up or slowing down, those things, like all of these physical things that you have to account for, and then figure out how to design a system that can take all that data and, apply that in a real world situation. It was an extremely challenging job. And since I'd worked so much with video games, like my first, I'm trying to think of like all the research I'd done was to look at different systems of how we built games. Like I worked on the Forza racing game, worked on a bunch of stuff with the Epic and Bungie, like Halo Wars, Gears of War. I worked on doing sound design. I was on the sound design team for a lot of the earlier game, and some of their when I was working with AKQA, which is a big design firm actually out in the Bay Area. I did a lot of work with them on their international website sound designs, doing UI sound design based stuff. I was picked up on a lot of things from the video game world, and I was like, well, the closest simulation you have is like driving simulation games. So I looked at some of those algorithms in like Fmod, and I was like, well, how can I recreate this the driving simulation components of like an Fmod driving simulation game, and then recreate that. Like, what are the most important things? And so I sort of took that model and designed my own model using the Kima. I think I used the Kima system and Reactor, and I started prototyping in Max, but then preferred the sound of Reactor. The filters are more smoother. I was looking for something that was generating like thicker, warmer sine wave and square waves, and Reactor was
So
was
Jaguar
much better.
cars have a Reactor patch running inside them?
They have, well, they don't have a patch, but they have actual synthesized Reactor layers that I designed, and Kima additive layers that I used as well.
But they just end up as like WAV files or MP3 files?
They were waves mixed with a synthesis engine that was also implemented in the car. So there's software that also plays like real-time synthesis as well as these layered samples play mixed in with the synthesis. So to get sort of what I call...
Did you develop the synthesis engine too? Like, did you program that also? Or?
I did yes, I did. I designed a system that would react to all of the acceleration, deacceleration of the car. So I had to first design that first, and then I presented that to Jaguar, and then they recreated a version of that would run in the car on completely different hardware and software. So they had to basically work from the ground up. But I had to create the architecture of it first and present it to them, and then be like, this is how we would approach this problem.
So the accelerator has like a MIDI signal being sent or something to this engine? Like, how does the accelerator send data to this piece of software?
Well, we designed after multiple iterations of, we designed a system that could take MIDI files, like a driving file that you could load in. So you could create a track in the software. Say, like, what if you wanted to drive through a town or go through a mountain drive, or if you wanted to have a drive where there was like lots of hills, or it was just flat highway driving. And like, we could also like increase the load limit in the software. Like, how many people are in the car? Is it a full, there's all 4 people sitting in the car, or only 1 person in the car? That would change the load limit on the engine. So the sound would change. There's all these things that would change the characteristic of how that sound would play back in different environments. And so, yeah, because when you really think about it, we had to really think about every single situation that you would run into when you're out driving. And the most important was like for me, it was like psychologically, how would the sound affect people over long periods of time? Like, I have to design an EV electrical engine sound. It needs to be pleasant. It needs to do the job of alerting people, the exterior sound, and then interior sound. There were 2 different sounds. I had to create an interior sound of the engine sound, which was different than the exterior sound.
So the speakers on the inside just playing sound to the driver?
Yes.
Is there an option to turn that off?
You can. Yeah, there's also denoising too. There's like denoising technologies and all kinds of crazy stuff that they added in to the car. So you could change the levels of how loud the perceived interior sound was. But the exterior sound was not changed at all. That was spec'd in the legislative doc.
Yeah,
that was
like
always
the whole
fixed
point in the first place.
The whole point, yeah. But we could fine tune things in.
I'm still curious, like how is the accelerator triggering this piece of software? Because I actually had like a fader pedal. Yeah, but I mean, like, so in the finished product, like if in the cars these days, like how is the accelerator triggering the piece of software?
It's tracking your movement. It's on this it's like on a it's like a, I don't know, just like on an axis. I don't know how to describe it.
Is it sending just MIDI?
In my patch, it was MIDI. Yes. In the actual software, it was, I don't know what, it was a data instruction set that they had. Sorry, my kids are calling me.
No problem.
Yeah, they basically converted all of this because there was no MIDI that was happening in the actual car. It was all basically data-driven stuff that was connected to
something that just sends packets, and the software just knows how to read said packets, and it's like their own proprietary type of system or something.
Exactly. It was completely proprietary.
Gotcha.
And basically what I had to do was just create a system that they could recreate.
Gotcha.
So but yeah, mine was simply just using MIDI. I was then creating these sort of like MIDI driving files that would test the different engine models at different rates and different speeds to give them more of these accurate simulations of what the sound would sound like. And then they would actually test these models out and do recordings for me in the actual car. So they would take a B&K dummy binaural head system, sit them in the car and drive it out and give me feedback, like with the windows down. Then they would do outside recording so I could hear how loud it was at different distances that we could measure, so that it was, you know, cutting through different conditions, say like really rainy days where the air was really thick with lots of moisture, really cold windy days. Like we had to really test it in almost every sort of, you know, during snowstorms, or like how well is this sound translating and cutting through the air in different environments, with wind noise and environmental noise and all the background stuff that you get along with being out in the, you know, in the outside world. So it was, yeah, like I said, there was a lot of thought put into the whole project piece by piece, but it's, it's like I said, it's such a strange job. If you would have asked me what I would have been doing like 10 years ago and told me that, hey, I think you're going to be designing sounds for electric cars, I would have laughed and said there's no way.
Yeah, it seems like the craziest job. Like I've never heard of such a job, and yeah, it's so impressive that is a job, you know.
I think it's going to become more of a common thing though, now that all these vehicles are like, there's like this race.
You're like the forefather of that job. Like, I mean,
it's bizarre.
How many people on the planet like would know how to set up a system like this?
I don't know. I stumbled through it, and even then, and it's funny. Before I got hired at Apple, I had, I think, like 6 different companies. I had Porsche, I had Mercedes-Benz. They were all knocking at my door. Lucid, wow. who's in the Bay Area, they're another electric car company who,
oh my God,
are doing really cool stuff that I think are going to be on people's radars very soon. They're doing very like high end, sort of like Lexus. If you were to like look in that sort of tier of electric vehicles, doing very beautiful things. They were about to hire me to work on all of their cars before I jumped at Apple. So, yeah, it's not a field that a lot of people have experience in, and even my experience through it was like a 4 to 5 year thing of us of doing a lot of trial and error studies and experiments to try to really figure out how we were going to do this. And I remember there was only one other guy. I remember there was another guy that was working at Audi that I would hit up as well. And both of us were scratching our heads. We're like, well, we've got to figure this out, you know, like, you know, these are like high-end luxury car manufacturers. We're not like working with some, we're not designing like a Ford Model T or something. It's just,
it's not pretty like, hard, you know, doing sound design for like some small indie game or something like that. It's like,
it's different. Yeah. This is like, this is affecting like everyday people that'll be buying and driving these vehicles. Yeah. Like, yeah, I worked on plenty of games and things like that, but this was completely out of my realm of what I normally do.
Speaking of games, I'd love to talk about it. Do you mind if I go to the toilet really quickly first?
Sure, man. No, go right ahead.
Okay, thanks. All right, sorry about that. I drank too much LaCroix at the start of this.
It's all good.
But yeah, speaking of games, like I know you worked on Cyberpunk recently, and you also worked on Doom, and you've worked on like a bunch of cool games. What's the process like for stuff like that? And what was your work like on Cyberpunk? Like what did you do on that game?
Man, I gotta think back on. There's a bunch of content. I think I did a bunch of loops. I think they had me make a couple hundred Omnisphere patches. They were really big Omnisphere users, and I worked with Eric Persing and Diego and a lot of the guys at Spectrasonics on the original Omnisphere patches, the Moog Tribute patches, and a bunch of stuff that's in there. So I was pretty well familiar with that synthesizer. So that was one of the big ones that they used, and they were like, hey, if you could create a custom library of just patches for us that we could use, and these are the different categories that we want. So I designed those first, and then they wanted very specific sounding sort of, I don't know how to describe it, skeletal like drum beats and stuff like that. I'm trying to describe it as like textural drum beats that weren't completely filled in. It was just like stuff like construction pieces that they could use.
Gotcha.
So I went and designed like hundreds of loops and beats and things, and a lot of stingers, tons of sound effects like impact sweeteners and risers and tension builders, and like there were a lot of like atmospheric drones and things. And like Night City, like a lot of the stuff in Night City when I was designing, and then all the different like different varying areas within Night City where they kind of gave me like a list of things that they wanted. So I kind of went and designed stuff based on those specs. And what was really great was I didn't have to really change much. They were like, hey, we want you to just be you, do you the stuff. Like the game is exactly like your sound, cybernetic, these people are like modifying themselves or like robotics and like into the future, but it's all like this thrashed, like completely decimated world. So we want the sounds to be rustic and mechanical and alien and machinery like, but they made a strong point that they wanted it to sound like organic, like analog. They wanted to use analog synthesis as like the main timbre of the game. Like everything would be made with analog synthesizers. And I said, oh, that's awesome. I don't think I'll have any problems with that. And so I designed, pretty much everything with analog synthesis, a lot of the sequences and all the drum sounds and everything. I designed everything from the ground up with using analog synthesizers and sorry here.
Do you need to take that? You can take it if you want.
Somebody calling for my daughter to play probably. Oh no, it's all good. It's my daughter's friend. They're trying to play like Minecraft or something together on the iPad or something.
Nice.
But it's that was fun. Yeah, a lot of the games I've worked basically doing basically sound design, construction based elements. Like with Mick, that's what I did on Doom. We did, I think it was like a couple of gigabytes of really crazy, maybe 12 gigs or 10 gigs of stuff. It was a lot for that.
You mean Mick Gordon? Is that right?
With Mick Gordon, yeah. Mick's great.
So I actually went to his website a couple of days ago and like filled out the form on his website asking him to come on the podcast as well. And he said yes, which is awesome. So I'm really stoked to chat
Mick
with him.
is awesome.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of the Doom soundtrack. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's incredible. I mean, if you ask me, Mick is like one of the most incredible guys in the game when it comes to, video game composers world. I feel like he's
he really nailed it for Doom. Yeah, like Doom is I think the most fitting, if there's like I think it's like the most fitting soundtrack for that game that could have ever possibly been created.
Oh yeah, I mean he just killed it. I worked on another game with him. It was the what was it called? My brain, that's how fried my brain is right. New World Order was the
Wasn't like Wolfenstein or something?
Wolfenstein. Sorry, yes, you're right. Wolfenstein New World Order was the game that we worked on before that, and that one was really fun too. Yeah, but yeah, the Doom was really fun to work on, and with that, Mick was like, "Hey, I want to, if we could make like metal, like deranged, everything's gonna sound like metal, being bent or distorted in certain ways," and that was just such a fun project to work on, because games there's really no limit. They want you to push things as intense as possible and be, the sounds can be really aggressive and over the top, because every other game is trying to outdo each other. So the more intense and gnarly the sounds are, the better. So I love that. There's no constraint. There's no saying, no, we're just gonna, Mick was like, hey, just make it sound as fucked up as you can. That's the brief, So and I was like,
I had no idea that you were involved in the music creation process for Doom. Like I thought it was just all Mick. So basically he was like asked to do the music for Doom, and then he just asked people like you to come on board and try to help him with like some of the sound design in some of the tracks. Or
Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm always interested in how these composition jobs work. Like Hans Zimmer is a good example of this, where he gets asked to score a movie or whatever, and it's like at the end of the day, not 100. Like, maybe he ends up doing like 30% of the work or something, but it's more or less like at that level, your job becomes somewhat like a project manager, where you just sort of have the overall vision and then you sort of outsource a lot of the work to other composers and sound designers and whatnot. Not saying that Mick didn't like do a shit ton of work on Doom or whatever, but yeah, I find that job role interesting, of like it kind of becomes this project managery type thing.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I'm sure he does a lot. I would imagine there were other people involved in it as well. I didn't know. I just knew what parts that I was responsible for. But I think on a game that's that big, you work with probably a team. There's probably like 30 or 40 people that are working on stuff and different things. And but yeah, the job that I was tasked or made that he hired me for was just to get these really, really just like menacing, uncomfortable sounds. Like I made a bunch of like just super gnarly stingers and impacts, like heavy slams, and just like you hear them all over the game, just super creepy stuff. I made a whole like just like electrical energy stuff too, where it's like this evil electrical energy, which I did a lot of like electromagnetic recordings using like pickups and induction coils and things like that, where I was just trying to get the most grittiest, gnarliest like electromagnetic recordings. And so I did a lot of experiments with that. And then we did I used like all these different gongs and metals and experimenting with recording fire, different things melting and burning. And yeah, it was super fun. Like I love projects like that where I'm forced to get into like deep sampling, field recording, or a combination of like recording and synthesis and sound design, and combining all of these elements to create these really like otherworldly spaces and environments with sound. It's just like so exciting to do those things, because I don't get that opportunity that often unless I'm doing it for my own music.
And what's the process like? Like when a job like that lands on your desk, do you sort of like create a new folder on your desktop or whatever, and just be like, this folder's called Doom, and then just like start collecting shit and like putting it in that folder and start building up project files in there? Or like what's the process like for something like that?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I do is I just listen for stuff. They'll send references, and then the brief, usually they'll send me, like I like lots of visual references that they can give me. If the game, at that point, like when we started working on Doom, they didn't have really much of the game finished it at all at that point, so I didn't really have a lot to go off of. So Mick had sent me a lot of like these storyboards where there was like this imagery of the different scenes and different levels of the game. And so I could see some of the characters, and most importantly, I could see the environments where the people playing the game would be going through. So I wanted to really capture the essence of like the feel of these places. Like that was most important to me. So by doing that, he also sent some reference tracks, like of stuff that he thought would be like interesting, like an artist, like I think one of the references was like Raimi and I think like Alva Noto. Like there was different artists that he really liked, that they had a certain thing or aesthetic in their music. It'd be really interesting to like take that aesthetic and use that in some of the rhythms or some of the beats and stuff. I created a lot of stuff that he could use at different tempos that were like, once again, like skeletal things that he could layer and construct with. They were like more like construction pieces. And so it was a lot of like single sound design based stuff. And then it was like musical element stuff too, that he could use, that I designed from the ground up. But I left it open enough to where he could layer things and build things off of those pieces. I didn't want it to be completely fleshed out where he didn't have room to do things. I tried to keep it where it was usable, but in the context of how he was trying to build these pieces in the game. But yeah, it was like I said, it's fascinating. It's so much fun to work on those projects. And just like you said, like it first, I set up a folder, get the brief, and then I start listening to stuff, and then I just start kind of thinking about things about like, all right, well, what do I want to achieve? Like what kind of sounds do they want? What do they want it to feel like? And then I start thinking about what instruments and things I'm going to pull together to create these sounds. And then I start recording I start recording stuff, and then it just goes through iterations of processing and then refining and then more recording and then more layering and then processing and stuff until I get stuff in a place to where I feel like it's starting to feel right. And I remember like giving stuff pass after pass to Mick, and he'd be like, oh yeah, this is getting exactly to what I want. Oh, this is it right here. Or there's a lot of back and forth, of just sending files and stuff and to getting it to feel just right. It's like really about the emotion, like getting the feeling just right is the best way I can describe it. Is really when it comes to like game audio, I think it's like, what kind of tension or uncomfortableness do you want the person to feel at any part of that game, where, whether they're fighting or they're killing somebody or whatever, like the audio and everything also has to intensify based on what the that person's doing at that given time. So it's a tricky balance of being able to design all these pieces that work together that can basically be played at that given time, and that combination to create that sort of that feeling of tension or fear or excitement. It could be all of the above, but it's tricky. It's just like building with Lego pieces, audio Lego pieces that can work in subtle layers or work in complex layers being played with many other pieces. So it's you think of things in pieces. I think that's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you do a project, say like Cyberpunk 2077, is it? Whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Do you like then go like, all right, Cyberpunk, new project, new game, create a new folder, all new recordings? Or do you go like, oh, there was some stuff in Doom that I could reuse for this, or some stuff from Doom that like I didn't end up using for Doom that could work well for this, or like anything like that? Or is it just like completely fresh slate and new stuff?
I fresh slate every time.
Oh, wow.
I love doing everything from scratch every time. Yeah. Every project I've worked on, I always do it from scratch.
Is there a certain like an ethos or mentality there, or?
I feel if I go into designing something from the ground up with like the idea of what I want, I feel that I can achieve it faster than if I'd like go through my library, spend like hours looking for something like, oh, I know I have something that's kind of close to this. And then, I spend like an hour going through thousands of sounds, and then I finally find that sound. I was like, yeah, it's not quite like what I remembered. And then, I was like, well, I just spent 2 hours. I could have just spent that time just designing the sound that was like close to the sound that I had in my mind. So like I'd run into that many times in the past when I did sound design for a lot of TV commercials and working for advertising agencies, where I was like, working under a really tight deadline and, was like looking for this one sound to be perfect for this one part in the scene and the spot. And then I was just like, well, I could have just made it. And 90% of the time when I just made the sound, it ended up being better than the sound that I like spent, an hour searching for through my back catalog of libraries and stuff. So I've figured out ways of just, and when you design something from the ground up, from scratch, with that mindset, if you're, trying to achieve a certain goal, like, or they've given you a brief or a direction to go in, you're going to come up with much better stuff that's going to be right in line with that, rather than trying to use older stuff to make something fit, at least for me. Other people might have a different approach, or maybe that has worked out for them if they're doing very similar style music from game to game to game. But for me, it was always like a drastic different project where it required completely different sounds and a whole different headspace. So I usually just was like, what, I'm just going to start everything from scratch and build everything new. And then it's just seemed to be the better way or approach for me, at least.
Yeah, I guess like there's something sort of special about everything having this artisanal, like bespoke quality to it too. And it's always like everything's going to be slightly unique. And also you have the added benefit of not running into legal issues, right? Like if you made something for Doom and then one of the sound design pieces for the contract that you signed was like, this is exclusive to Doom and like you cannot use this for anything else. And then you accidentally pull it into another project, then you're maybe in some trouble.
Exactly.
So on and so forth.
That's another good reason. Yeah, I mean, because usually when I've done those projects, I do buyouts where they just buy all the sounds out from me. And so they own the sounds after that, and they can do whatever they want with them. And then, I just kind of close that folder up and just start new. And for me, it's fun. I love making stuff from scratch. That's one of the most fun parts of my job, is like being able to start from nothing. Like, you have a blank sheet of paper. Okay, what's the picture I want to draw? What do I want to, what kind of story do I want to tell with these sounds? To me, is the most, that would be taking like all the fun out of it for me if I didn't get to do that. There'd be no reason for me to even want to attempt the job if they didn't want me to build everything from scratch. So it's, I love that challenge. And, you really kind of put all the tools you have to use. And, and I love I love having the options of being able to use all these crazy equipment that I've collected over the years and being like, actually put it into a cool project where I put everything into use, where it's like, it's like the EO Wave metallic resonator right there in the game, or like this weird crazy vintage synth, or that was a tinizer synthesizer that I used at this part, or this, like, all these cool little things that I've collected that, they've become part of this like legacy, or this game that, it has your own little personal touch to it. That's like, it's just such a cool, rewarding thing to hear at the end of the day, after you've like finished the whole project and it's like out in the world for people to experience. I don't know. It's just, it's a cool thing,
Have you ever thought about going through all of these old projects and taking maybe like all the offcuts that didn't make it into the games or whatever, and like turning it into a giant sample pack or something?
A couple companies have hit me up about that.
I mean, it seems like you would just have days worth of insane recordings.
Yeah, I definitely have a ton. There's been like Soundmorph, and a lot of companies have hit me up.
I was actually just thinking them. I would be like, dude, Soundmorph would probably pay out the ass for like you.
Yeah,
they
Jason,
have great libraries, and it's very much up your alley kind of stuff, like very elemental.
Oh yeah, I've done a couple libraries with Jason.
Nice.
And then at Soundmorph, I did the modular UI library with him. Oh,
you did some presets for that plugin that Rob Clouth made too, right? Dust.
Yeah, the Dust instrument's amazing. And then we did the Mechanism. I worked on Mechanism as well.
That makes total sense. Yeah, that's the actual pack I think I was thinking of. Either that or Elemental, that I think sounds very much like your style.
Yep, those were all we recorded at the. I recorded those in Montreal, Canada, with the CO100K microphone. I brought it up, and I can't remember if I was playing Mutech Festival or I was playing a show or doing something up there, and I stayed for like 4 or 5 extra days, and Jason and I rented out a Foley stage, and we recorded for like 4 or 5 days and recorded tons of gears and watches and ratchets and stuff, everything at like 24 192K with this the Sanken CO100K microphone. So this microphone records up to 100K. So you're in the range of like hearing bats and insects and crazy things. But this microphone's incredible. They use it at BioWare, where Jason used to work. He was, I think, one of the lead sound designers at BioWare before he started Soundmorph. And they use this microphone for all the creature recordings. So record all these, different animals and stuff, and then you would pitch it down with the CO100K microphone, because, when you have a microphone that can capture the upper harmonics and the upper detail,
doesn't sound like you lose all the quality.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's just that microphone's insane. Yeah, I have 2 of them. That's how awesome they are. Like,
what are they called?
The CO100K by Sanken microphone.
CO100K by Sanken.
It's Japanese microphone manufacturer. Yep.
Damn, $2,500.
Yeah.
It's expensive, but yeah, it looks like.
If you're into they're absolutely incredible, and I was using the Sound Devices recorders with them, the Sound Devices preamps and stuff. I used quite a bit.
They're really nice preamps.
Oh yeah, I mean, the industry standard, if you ask me, for doing sound effects. But yeah, that microphone's incredible. That we use that for that particular library. That's what I use singly to capture all the sounds for all the Mechanism stuff, or like all the ratchety, heavy, but super detailed too. Like, it's got really good high fidelity, and yeah, it's just such an interesting microphone. But yeah, like you said, I have tons of stuff that I've recorded and for those games, and I record stuff all the time. I've even got my wife. My wife records stuff too. She's actually better at capturing cool stuff than I am. She comes up with some of the coolest field recordings. We did an ambisonic library the year before for Rode microphones.
Nice.
For their new ambisonic mic, the NTSF1, and she helped me out on the project. She was just like, she comes up with like the coolest things. I don't know how it's great sometimes to have someone that just like thinks about things in a totally different perspective. I remember she's like, all right, what if I took the ambisonic mic and went through a car wash? I was like, that'd be cool. So she took the van because she had the kids, and it's like, all right, guys, I need you to be real quiet. I'm going to record us going through the car wash. So she recorded it, or she brought it home, and we have a Dolby Genelec Atmos system in my Studio B room here, connected to this room, and we played it back, and I was like, oh my God, this is the most menacing, evil sound ever. It's amazing. And we sent it to the guys at Rode, and they were like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, and I was like, yeah, my wife totally came up with this, but she's come up with such cool stuff. Like, we recorded her hummingbirds. We put these little DPA miniature omnidirectional microphones into, they're so tiny. They're like the size of like a eraser pencil head. That's how miniature they are. And we like ran the wire and through into the hummingbird feeders. Like, how could we record the hummingbirds? And she's like, why don't we put the DPA microphones and fix them into the places where the hummingbirds will come up and feed into the feeder? And she did, and we got the most incredible hummingbird recordings of those, like, almost sounds like mechanical robots flying, like little drones flying into the into our hummingbird feeder. And she got that. She's gotten some crazy stuff, and I think one of the most interesting recordings that we got that was because of her was we did this. It's on my SoundCloud page. I remember like Aphex Twin and all these people like commented on it. It was a recording of a burning ember of wood underwater. Oh, we did a hydrophone recording. So we took these hydrophones and dumped them under the water, and we were partying on New Year's Eve on this beach, and we had a fire next to the beach, and we had to put the fire out at the end of the night. And we started throwing some of the embers of wood into the water, and immediately it made this crazy sound the second it hit the water. And my wife was like,
just like steam sort of sounds or something.
It was like, and she was like, go get the hydrophones. And I was like, oh yeah. So we dumped the hydrophones in, and yeah, you could listen to it on my SoundCloud page. I've released the sound for free so people could download it, but it sounds like thousands of people screaming in hell. It's like completely terrifying. And
I have so many tabs open from this conversation that I'm just going to go through later.
Yeah, check it. It's on my SoundCloud page. It's like something burning embers of wood underwater. And if you scroll down, it's probably older, but yeah. And like SoundCloud had posted it like it's like their like the sound effect of the year or something. There was some weird thing that they had, but it's that was her
Here
idea.
We go. I found it. 51,000 plays. Jeez.
For just the sound effect.
Yeah, must be a good sound.
Yeah, but yeah, you should check it out because you'll hear like the oxygen escaping through all the holes in the wood, and it creates these really, really crazy.
Oh wow!
Like,
yeah, that sounds crazy.
It's pretty gnarly. Yeah, so like, yeah, there's a whole world of just crazy sounds. Like some of the most bizarre stuff that we've gotten have been underwater recordings. There's some other recordings up there on my SoundCloud too of like dolphins and shrimp feeding, and then there's sucker fishes in Florida that we recorded that make these sort of like moo-mooing noises underwater. It's a really bizarre recording there too. If you check it out,
I have
further
one
down.
hydrophone. It's made by Cold Gold Audio.
Oh, Cold Gold. Yep.
And it's okay. I mean, it was like $30 or something. It's pretty cheap, but yeah, I mean, sometimes those cheap tools like do you know Crank Sturgeon as well?
Oh, Crank Sturgeon's great. Yeah, they make cool.
Yeah, I have like a bunch of these like random
spring,
little things and stuff. They're sometimes pretty interesting for getting just random results out of. I like having just weird little toys like that for sure.
Oh no, you're talking to the guy who loves all those.
So I have one more question, and you don't have to talk about this if you don't like. It's like somewhat personal, but it's a story I heard from Tipper.
Dave.
Yeah, about you getting bitten by a spider and then getting on a plane. Would you like to tell that story or?
Oh, sure. No, yeah. That's funny because me and Dave have very close stories because we both had heart surgery, which a lot of people don't know about. And I've known Dave for a number of years. I mean, probably going back, 25 years now? Maybe close to 30 years. I mean, I knew Dave back in the Fuel days, way back in the day when he was living in England. And we had him play at a bunch of our parties, the Schematic parties back when we were in Miami. And we've been huge fans of Dave's music. And obviously he's been a huge inspiration to me and such an awesome guy. And so we share these stories of open heart surgery because I had my open heart surgery in 2007. And, like you said, I got it at the NAMM show outside. I was working with Native Instruments. And I went on a lunch break and I had noticed that my ankle was bleeding and it was itching and it was weird. I was like, why is my ankle bleeding? This is really bizarre through my socks. And I was like, I don't remember getting cut or anything like that. And within about 3 to 4 hours, I became deathly ill. And at that point in time, I didn't put 2 and 2 together that had anything to do with why I was so sick. I basically I was in LA, I was in Anaheim, I was in a hotel, and I was DJing for Native Instruments, and I had to tell the rest of the people at the Native Instruments booth, I was like, yeah, I can't, I'm totally sick. I'm going to have to like camp out at the hotel until I get better. But my condition didn't get better. I got worse and worse, and eventually I had to figure out how I was going to get home. I was like, I got to get home. I also had a show in LA with Basic and a bunch of people that I had to cancel in Hollywood, and everything got canceled. I was like, I got to figure out what's wrong with me. Long story short, I get home. My wife picks me up at the airport and was like, oh, you're in bad shape. And tried to camp out with being sick. I had fever chills. I had like a fever of 104, 105, like Whoa. Borderline brain damage.
Jesus.
And yeah, we couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. It was really weird. I had these blood spots in my fingertips that were really painful underneath my fingernails. And then I'd gotten so sick. And mind you, through this period, we threw a party at our house during this time. I went to Cirque du Soleil with my parents. So I spent 9 days with this infection that was killing my body when I didn't know that I was dying. Wow. And I got to a point where I got so sick I couldn't get up off the couch to go to the bathroom anymore. I was so sick, I was delirious. My wife was like, I'm taking you to the emergency room. This isn't right. So I end up in the hospital. I remember going on the way to the ER, I basically passed out. I was 105 temp. I woke up in the ICU with all these machines hooked up to me, and my wife was there, and she's like, oh my God, you're awake. I'm like, yeah, what's going on? She's like, it's not good. You're in ICU. I was like, ICU's not good, right? And she's like, no, intensive care means like it's bad. They want to call your parents and let them know that you're dying. I was like, oh, so I'm dying. She's like, yeah, you're dying. They've got everything running into you right now to keep you alive because they don't know what's killing you right now. So they're just pumping you with broad spectrum antibiotics.
It's like steroids
and I was like,
shit.
Just everything you could think of just to stabilize my condition, because, if you come in there, they don't know what's killing you. They first have to kind of do a bunch of blood tests and, figure out what's in your bloodstream or what's going on with you. So it's like they kind of take the numbers and read things and see where things are at. So that's the position I was in. So yeah, I didn't realize that I was dying of a staph infection that had gotten into my bloodstream and had attacked my heart. And through all that, I didn't realize that I had a congenital heart defect. That was I was in an ICU. There was a bunch of cardiologists that came. I was like, why are cardiologists here? Why are there I've never had a heart problem. I've never had palpitations. I've never had shortness of breath or anything. And, all these years. So it was really puzzling to me that, that they were becoming this. Like, how does that have anything to do with me being sick? So it was a lot of stuff that didn't make sense to me at the time. But then after looking back on it, I realized, yeah, I was dying from a staph infection, and I was in cesspit, and my body was shutting down. I was like having organ shutdown failure at that point. And there were clots from vegetations that were forming on my heart valve where the staph infection had attacked and started eating through my aortic valve. And because I had a congenital heart defect, that one place that had an insufficiency in is where the infection took advantage of my body and turned into what's called endocarditis. Or for short, endo, yeah. But endobacterial carditis is what they call it. The scientific medical term is basically a staph infection of the heart lining that attacks your heart that's in your bloodstream. And so from there, they had to get rid of the staph infection. I spent about a month in the hospital, and then I had to have heart surgery. Yep, still on it. I'll be done in a few minutes. You can have a snack.
That's awesome.
Anyways, yeah. So basically, yeah, like I was saying, long story short, I was in the hospital for close to a month, and yeah, basically had to get the staph infection under control before they could fix the issues with my heart. And then I had to have heart surgery to correct all the damage that was done to my heart lining from the staph infection. And I was just like, how did this even happen? And I remember the infectious disease doctor said, look, everyone carries staph infection on their fingernails and their nose, nostrils. It's everywhere. It's all over your body. And, it happens all the time. And healthcare facilities and gyms. It's just, you were just extremely unlucky that this happened. It was just a freak thing. And unfortunately, it caused a lot of damage because we waited so long to come into the hospital. Because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I would have, had I known that would have been the outcome, I don't think I would have ended up having heart surgery had I went right to the hospital as soon as I got home from the airport instead of waiting 9 days later to do something. So, but yeah, so here I am. Now I have a mechanical heart valve. So I actually have a serial number, and my heart sounds like a hi-hat. It clicks like a hi-hat. And
wow.
So I'm actually part cyborg now, for real.
Oh man, that is a brutal story.
It's pretty brutal. Some of the stuff that I experienced in the hospital, I will say that it was some of the most disturbing. Like heart surgery is pretty violent. Like they kill you for 90 minutes. They cut your rib cage open. They physically kill you. They put you on a lung bypass machine. There's a machine that pumps the blood for you and does the breathing for you. It is not like a...
Oh man, this story is making me so queasy. Oh.
It's brutal. I'll tell you this much, that most people in their lifetimes will live on this planet will never go through that. It's menacing. Yeah. I remember having to be in the hospital, carry around this fluid box that was draining from my rib cage, and I remember I couldn't walk, and it was extremely bizarre. It was like being in the worst trip ever. Like I don't even know how to describe it. Like it was the whole experience was completely bizarre, is the best way I can put it. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty out there for sure. Most people don't know, but yeah, it was definitely happy to be back on planet Earth is the best way I can put it. Definitely happy to be back on planet Earth and alive, and I appreciate all the things that most people probably don't even think about in a day, just stepping outside into your driveway and like feeling the sunlight, or just, the little things in life. And it's one of those things that it's hard to describe to people unless you've been through it yourself. But yeah.
Oh, fuck. Oh. Jesus Christ. Oh, man. Oh.
You hanging in? Do you mean to hit stop on the recording, or did you...
Oh, holy hell.
Oh, it's all good. Trust me. I don't know if Dave ever told you his story. His story's pretty interesting too. When he called me from a hospital in Australia, he was in bad shape too. I'll never forget that call.
Oh my God. Hey, dude, I am sorry. I just cracked my head open.
Oh, are you all right, man?
I don't think so.
Oh,
Dude,
shoot, man!
yeah,
I'm sorry.
There's a shit ton of blood on the ground.
Oh no! Oh my gosh!
Man.
Holy cow, dude! I had no idea. I can't see. I couldn't see you. You kind of fell to the floor, but I couldn't see what happened because I can't see any lower than your table. Oh, geez, man.
Dude, I gotta go.
Alrighty, man. Well,
yeah. Look at all this blood on my face, dude. This is bad.
Oh my God, man! I'm so sorry, dude. Well, take care of yourself, and I just stopped the recording.
Thank you. All right, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, totally, man. Message me and make sure you're all right, and hopefully it's not too bad.
Man. Oh my God.
Super sorry, man.
All right, see you, man.
Alrighty, man. Be well, my friend.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for listening to the Mr. Bill podcast. These episodes are edited and uploaded twice a week by Robert Fumo of 303podpro.com. You can also support the show, get early access to episodes, and hear bonus content by going to patreon.com/Mr. Bill's Tunes and becoming a patron. Please rate and review on iTunes unless you're going to be a little shit about it. And all the links to my various platforms are at MrBillsTunes.com. Thank you.